In this video, I'll show you how to make a trinket box using paper clay and a balloon. The design was inspired by the new anime My Deer Friend Nokotan, which is one of the funniest and silliest things I've seen in ages. There's an iconic scene of the main character Nokotan lifting her head up by her antlers, and I thought this would make the perfect DIY. Of course, you can easily adapt this method for any other character you like. The first thing you want to do is blow up the balloon and then slowly let the air out until it forms a small ball. Doing it this way creates a rounder shape compared to just blowing it up to the size you want. I'm going to use my favorite brand of clay, which is Hearty Soft by Pedico. You can use any type of lightweight air-dry clay for this DIY. Polymer clay or heavier pottery clays don't work very well because the weight will distort the shape of the box before it has time to dry. A tip when working with air-dry clay is to keep your unused pieces inside a wet wipe or damp paper towel. This keeps the clay soft for however long you need to use it. I'm going to start by making Nokotan's face using red, yellow, and ochre acrylic paint. Once I have the desired shade, I'm setting aside a small piece for the details. Then I'm pressing the remaining clay into a large flat sheet. Cover the outside of the balloon generously with Vaseline, which prevents the clay from sticking. Now wrap it inside and pinch off the ends so everything is sealed. Make the shoulders using some white clay and then stick the head into place. I also double check that the knot of the balloon was facing down. Use plenty of water for this part and make sure the edges are firmly pressed together. Now I'm making a snake shape and then pressing the center part flat. Then I'm sticking this onto the face to create some volume for the cheeks. This phase of the DIY just mostly involves smoothing things out and always checking to make sure it's symmetrical. I'm using another tiny piece of clay to create a triangular chin and then sticking it into place. I'm pretty happy with how it's looking so far, and it's time to get started on the hair. So the best way to create darker shades with air-dry clay is to use ready-made brown or black clay. Unfortunately, I didn't have any, so I was forced to use paint, but this really isn't my favorite method. As you can see, it requires so much paint that the final result becomes quite soft and sticky. This isn't as easy to work with, and it can leave stains behind. To make the hair, I'm creating a leaf shape and then trimming it with scissors. Then I'm sticking each strand on separately. This is my reference picture, so I'm just trying to roughly follow the design of Nokotan's hair. Then I'm making the arms and using the final bit of skin-colored clay for the hands. To make the deer antlers, I'm starting with a long teardrop shape like this. Then I'm making 3 slanted cuts and smoothing them out to create the separate sections. I find that this method is easier than trying to attach the antler bits separately, and it also ensures that both sides look more symmetrical. Lastly, I'm just adding a few more details like the shirt collar and ribbon. Now it's time to create the opening of the trinket box. To do so, I'm going to use dental floss, which has been my favorite method to cut clay ever since I made this Pusheen EOS years ago. Wrap it around the head and pull it firmly to create a perfectly clean cut. Leave the floss in place and let the clay dry. The next part requires a bit of timing because you want the clay to be firm enough so it won't collapse, but still soft enough so you can smooth out any rough edges. For most types of paper clay, this should take a few hours. Once you feel the head has a good solidity to it, you can take a sharp object and pop the balloon. I'm doing this from the back because it's obviously easier to hide imperfections from this side. Once the balloon has deflated, you can carefully peel apart both sides of the box. As mentioned earlier, this method works for almost any type of design. You could turn this into the body of an animal or character, or keep it really simple and make a round box inspired by fruit or emojis. The less detail involved, the easier it's going to be. The antlers feel a bit floppy, so I'm going to stabilize them with toothpicks. Then I'm going over all the details and just making sure the top and bottom parts fit together. This is also a good time to check the thickness of the walls and make sure every part is roughly the same. A rather unexpected challenge of this DIY was that it was surprisingly tricky to keep the antlers in the correct position. Despite the toothpicks, they still had a tendency to droop down just because of the weight. So I ended up using this oil clay, which I reviewed in a video last year. This is very similar to plasticine, and it's basically a modeling compound that never dries up. It's sturdier than museum gel, and I'm creating 2 supports on both sides for the antlers. Another problem is that I didn't want the upper and lower parts of the box to stick together, so I'm going to place a thin sheet of plastic between them during the drying process. I left this alone for 2 full days, and I'm really pleased with how it turned out. The trickiest part was making sure the lid and base fit together seamlessly. There's so many details in the hair that I was quite worried it might get distorted while the clay is soft. However, once dry, it looks great, and all that's missing are the details. I'm simply sketching these out and then painting everything on using acrylic paint. It's very difficult to correct mistakes on paper clay, so be extra careful when doing this bit. First, I'm painting on the eyes based on the famous Nokotan scene, and then going over the outlines with the thinnest brush possible. Then I'm painting on her sailor collar and leaving out stripes of white. Then comes the turquoise ribbon, which I deliberately didn't make using clay because it was just too small. I have a lot more control using paint, and I was worried that adding more clay under the collar would make everything look too clunky. As a final touch, I'm adding some cheeks using blusher. This DIY might seem complex, but the truth is that if you can draw something, then you can sculpt it as well. This is nothing more than a 3-dimensional chibi. In my book, Super Cute Chibis to Draw and Paint, I cover everything you need to know about how to draw in chibi style. Once you can do this, then it's really easy to go from 2D into 3D. I've linked the book down below in case you want to check it out. Here's the finished trinket box, and it's the perfect size for small accessories, jewelry, keys, or coins. I'm Joanna, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!